I'm not from a mental health background whatsoever. So I've been in the automotive franchising space all my life. It's a family business, and so cars to mental health, right? It's quite a big shift, and I'm still very much involved with that. But I sort of felt this was like a real strong pull that if I didn't get involved with this and give it the time it deserves, I would get to later on in life, and I was always scared that I would regret not going for it with it.
Hmm.
But to give a bit of backstory to it, so I had a family member who was an alcoholic and was up until very very recently, and I'll talk about it. But so he was drinking has always been a massive part of his life, as most people of sort of that generation. Um, and I grew up just sort of like thinking it was extremely normal. Like I think most sort of people who have had alcoholism in their family, you kind of just, it's the normal and you get used to it, and you don't really realize that it's not normal till later on in life. And I, that probably affected me in certain ways, which I either didn't deal with, didn't process. And ironically, sort of from the age of about 19 to about 28,
Hmm.
29 maybe, I started dealing with things with alcohol in that sense, and my my drinking then became a problem. Not where I would be drinking sort of on my own, but I was not a I was not the nicest person when I was drunk, and it would things would almost come out when I was drinking. I was drinking quite often. I was sort of like a young lad, sort of early 20s, and it sort of led to other things. So I would be constantly going out drinking, putting myself in very dangerous situations, ending up with sort of certain behaviours that I hated, and
Mm.
as much as I wanted to, felt like I couldn't get away from it in a sense. So I would repeat these behaviours, get myself into dangerous situations, issues, and then sort of Monday morning, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday would be in sort of turmoil and sort of like just thinking, how the hell can I stop this? It was a constant cycle, right? And it was that went on for years, and because it was like it felt so normalized, and I didn't feel like I had like a mental health condition or anything like that. But
Hmm.
my mental health and my mental well-being was just getting worse and worse, right? So it was just getting worse and worse, and I was almost just doing that typical, like, it will sort itself out, right? It'll get better. I try different things and whatnot, and I was always extremely against therapy and mental health support. Um, not like,
Te- Tell me a bit about when you say you're against it. Share with me a bit about what that was like.
yeah. So I, the main thing was misunderstanding it, misinformation, right?
Hmm.
I had no idea that counseling and therapy could be utilized for things that weren't like severe mental health illnesses, right? So I early on, I didn't even think it was possible to go to speak to someone about what I was facing and get help with it. I think there's that. I think there's, as much as there are so many mental health advocates nowadays and whatnot, which is brilliant, there is still a stigma. There is still very much a stigma with it, and I didn't even think to explore it. I did. My mum, I'm very close with both my clients, but I've always been very open with my mum. She was very pro, like, just go look, try and speak to someone, speak to a counselor, speak to a therapist, reach out. And for about 3 years, she was on me, sort of like suggesting that. And because of my lack of education on it and the stigma, and almost kind of not wanting to admit defeat in a way and almost feel like I was broken, I neglected it sort of avoided it. And then I remember it. I just got back from um, a very heavy weekend in Marbella, I think, and I I felt like the lowest I had, and it had been getting worse up to that point, and I just thought I was about to swear then, but I don't know if I can swear
You're,
on.
of course, you're allowed to swear. Absolutely.
Well, I basically thought, fuck it, what else could I got to lose? Like, let's give it a shot because me just going round in circles is not fixing this thing.
Hmm.
So I think I went on BACP. A couple of sent a couple of requests out. I think maybe 2 out of 6 or 7 got back to me, and eventually had a call with someone and didn't know what to expect. Had that call. It's just a consultation call, 20 minutes, but proceeded with it. Had my first session
Mm.
um, with her name is Nina. She's fantastic, and it wasn't. There was no instantaneous sort of like feeling of like things are changing. But what it gave me is just having that first few sessions was I'd been feeling almost lost and hopeless for years, and it
Hmm.
gave me an element of hope that I almost latched onto in a way, and it was strange. So I've always been on and off very into my fitness, different sports, different types. I'm a bit obsessive like that. Pick up things for half a year or a year and drop them and try something else.
I
But
hear you.
yeah, and it gave me an element of hope to latch onto in a way that it was almost like I could treat it like that. It was I wasn't stuck in a certain way. I could work on something and things could get better. And that was fantastic for me. And that really changed things. Obviously, working through it with Nina was was amazing and like changed my life. But at that moment in time, when I had thought, okay, so like therapy is it's for people that are either severely mentally ill,
Hmm.
um, and just not for these sort of like general life issues that people face. And it really sort of like turned it around for me in that sense. And I didn't have the idea for Wobble then. After a good few sessions, I thought there's got to be so many people like me who won't even try and look for mental health support or won't even try and get better or speak to anyone because there's this stigma that is almost like it means you're broken, which it doesn't, as we know.
Hmm.
But also, I think almost what can be even more dangerous is the lack of education on it, in the sense of like, because if you don't think something can help you, then you're not going to look for it.
Yeah.
And when I that journey of looking for support wasn't the easiest. So I mean, I've got a background in franchising and whatnot, and a business background. So I thought there's got to be so many people like me who would be in the same boat with me. And if we like it's Wobble's not a charity, right? It is a business, and I always feel a bit funny about that because it's such an important mission.
Hmm.
Um, but if I could attach the mission of sort of destigmatizing and helping people get the right support to that, I thought it would be pretty worthwhile. And I sort of started. I launched it on socials. I was actually bricking it because I was launching it to friends and family first. This new thing,
Ah,
and
yeah.
that was probably to this day the most nerve wracking thing I've done. To actually say
Well, you,
I've had therapy,
yeah,
um,
you're being very vulnerable.
100%, right? And it was and I remember I did the first video, and I literally like uh, I think I booked a gym class for the time so I could just put the phone in and lock and not think about it. But it was positively received from friends and family and whatnot. And then we sort of like carried on sort of like trying to build a community on
Hmm.
socials, and we went from there. I mean, we've had massive delay in the tech and whatnot, and the actual sort of like business side of it. But well, when did I launch it? It's got to be like about 18 months ago now, I think.
Yeah.
Um, on socials, the idea of it and whatnot. But that that's probably the journey of how I got to it, and it that the family member that was an alcoholic has very recently stopped drinking, which shocked us all massively. But yeah, so that's the journey in a nutshell,
Mm.
really.
Can I ask, firstly, how long were you working with Nina for in the end? How long did that relationship last?
About nine, I think about 9 months.
Yeah.
Nine
Okay.
months.
Yeah. And you also said that, and I agree with you wholeheartedly, that there's a stigma still attached to accessing therapy, that it's for crisis points,
Mm.
it's for mental health, serious mental health, not for what you described as lower level day to day life struggles, perhaps, if I'm phrasing that right.
Yeah, 100%.
But so, what got you over the line to actually making that call to Nina, for example?
That would be my mum for sure. So
Right.
that would be her being extremely persistent with suggesting it, and
Okay.
which
Nagging
yeah, that's a good way of putting it. But
in a
and
loving way.
in a very loving way. And for me, it's not everyone's going to have that person, right? Like that's rare.
Mm.
So like if it wasn't for my mum, then I would never have I would have never have made that leap. Like for
Hmm.
certain, like I know that. But yeah, it was definitely my mum.
And so she was committed to encouraging you to try it, and
Yeah,
so she was, being positive about it, bringing it up in conversation, making sure that you knew that she hadn't forgotten about it, and I guess was trying to build confidence by bringing it up in you.
maybe. I mean, we've got very like we're very open with each other.
Uh huh.
Like very, I'd say maybe more than most.
Yeah.
And so I know that she'd had it in the past and she'd spoken about it and she spoke very highly of it. Um, and
Ah, okay. So she'd had experience herself. Yeah.
yeah, so she'd had a positive experience of it, like a very positive experience, like years ago. Um,
Hmm.
and I don't know, it's so my mum's always suggesting things to me, and whether it's a supplement for my gut health or whatever, and I'm always
Yeah.
like, yeah, okay, I'll look into it, but
Yeah.
it
Yeah,
doesn't.
Mum. Yeah. Yeah. I'll look at it
Yeah,
later.
and it just it took a while. It took longer than it should have for me to sort of. I mean, people only change when they want to change, right? And they only take action when it's either when it suits them, right? So like for me, I got to where I needed to get to in terms of like how sort of low and lost I felt. That
Hmm.
sort of like coinciding with her support and pushing me to sort of try it is what led to it.
Yeah.
But I'm a big believer that like if a lot of people will be so they'll be doing things that they know aren't good for them, or that they'll not doing things that they know would be good for them,
Hmm.
um, and it's very obvious to them and others. But I think in life sometimes you unfortunately need to get to a place where it feels more like desperation in a way sometimes.
Hmm.
Um, but that could be a very warped view on it. So that's just my opinion.
I think it's a very important view. I feel that often, sadly, people do, not consciously, but they do wait for perhaps something to get really bad before they reach out and try and seek help. And I think what you're speaking to is, at least there's more to learn from you about Wobble and the mission there, but what you're speaking to is wanting to reach people before they get to that crisis point,
Yeah,
and try and encourage people to see therapy as something readily accessible. You don't have to wait until you're at the darkest depths of despair. You can intervene on your own behalf earlier.
a 100%. And I think if I link that back to my own experience,
Hmm.
I would have saved myself a hell of a lot of sort of discomfort and sort of feeling real low and down if if that was my view back then, right? So
Hmm.
like I mean you can easily relate it to sort of like the doctors or health and stuff like that. And for me, if people can, I mean, I think it's really hard to do like the whole reframing mental health and therapy is despite the lack of advocates that we have, I think it's really tough. Like, and I've had a really interesting conversation with someone recently about this, in the sense of mental health in itself. The word is almost feels impossible to reframe because, and I'm not saying it is, but and this person suggested maybe even trying to reframe it in the sense of sort of like emotional health, emotional strength, emotional fitness, just on wordplay.
Hmm.
Because
Yeah.
I mean, if you the word mental in itself, if you people will say someone's they're mental, I've had a mental day, it's bad, right? It's got negative associations with it.
It does. Yeah.
But if you were to if I were to say turn around and say maybe not so much now, but like before, or and I might have to generalize, but if there was a group of friends, and it's probably better to generalize men here, if a person within that friendship group turned around and out of the blue said, "Oh, I'm having therapy,"
Mm.
I would say that the majority of male friendship groups would almost find that uncomfortable initially. It would be almost like you automatically think, right? You think, shit, what's wrong with them? Like, how long have they been suffering? Is this why they've been a little off? And it's if you were to box it in positive or negative reactions, I would say it probably land more in the negative. Um, but it shouldn't. But and if I was to turn around to like a group of friends and say, I've got a running coach, I'm doing couch to 5K, I'm doing a park run, I'm going to try and get a 5K time of whatever. Most people, 99.9%, are going to turn around and say, like, fair play, well done. Like you're bettering yourself, right? You're choosing to work on a very important aspect of your health and well-being and move it forward, which is mad because mental health, which is probably like just as if not more important than say working on your physical health,
Hmm.
I think gets a completely different reaction. And if I think I'm still unsure how to do this, but if it can be a case of reframing in the sense of like you're taking steps to getting sort of emotionally stronger, emotionally fitter, then and it almost paints it in a light that is the same as the perception of fitness and physical health and well-being of, oh, you're moving forward, you're working on yourself. And I am speaking like obviously there's different scenarios where people are in crisis and they need urgent support, but speak to my situation, and I think there's a ton of people that would really benefit from exploring mental health support, whether it's therapy, whether it's just doing paying a bit more focus to improving their sort of mental well-being. I think there'd be a lot less people that reach crisis point and end up with
Hmm.
serious life issues that really have a negative impact on them. I think specifically for men, right? And where because I was brainstorming how we could portray this in terms of like media and whatnot, and the obvious answer is gym, right? Like gym is very relatable. The majority of people are aware of it, do it, take part in it, and you could almost like look at a couple of terms like repetitions, like reps in the when you're lifting weights and whatnot, and relate that.
Shameless plug, by the way, Jack, for this name of this podcast is Flex Your Feelings.
Oh, there we go, there we go. And it's it's tough because yeah, men don't. I think generalizing, men probably don't like to be vulnerable and talk about that stuff. And if there is a way to relate it back to something that is more relatable and less clinical, less
Hmm.
vulnerable, because yes, it people probably need to be a bit more vulnerable, but just by saying right, men need to be more vulnerable, it's not going to happen. Is it? It's like it's not gonna work. Um, so yeah, I'm going to play around with some concepts with it in terms of video and whatnot when I get the chance, but I don't think it's going to be an easy challenge because
Hmm.
it's so ingrained. It's so ingrained in society, and sort of even when you were saying mental health feels clinical, it does because you can just sort of imagine it on a poster, or you can imagine it sort of like someone saying they've got like a severe mental illness. Like if if you're working on your physical health, it doesn't mean you've got a severe physical illness, right?
Hmm.
It's unfairly painted in a very sort of like harsh or severe lighting, maybe, that would be good to try and change, and I think would impact a lot of people. But how I do that, and how we all do that, I'm not sure. I think it's a big challenge.
Well, in my humble opinion, it feels like we carry on having conversations.
100%.
We challenge the social norms and stigmas. We keep talking about it. We try to role model the very things that we want to help others with, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
So it's conversation by conversation. We speak up. We try and advocate for the power and transformational impacts of therapy, but also that men don't have to continue to hide their emotions and their feelings, that actually they can be all of the things that are presented to men to be, like the protectors and the providers and so on, but also be in touch with their emotions.
yeah,
It doesn't all have to be about anger or aggression or, yeah, any of those sort of, I guess what you'd say come under maybe a toxic masculinity sort of umbrella. That, I know that term is very controversial, but I just mean that, like, we're human first, right? Regardless of gender, we're
yeah,
human, and we all are born with the innate capacity to express feelings and emotions, except we're shaped and molded in ways that don't allow for the growth and expression of those emotions and feelings in men. Often we're just not taught how to do it.
yeah. Absolutely. There's a lot of pressure, or well, I should say pressure from society, or just even shapes from society that people are meant to fit in, right? And it's to go against that. And I know times are changing and whatnot, and and things are, but sometimes even when things seem to be changing quite quickly, like it doesn't necessarily have the same benefit, right? In terms of like,
Mm-hmm.
so there's a lot of people speaking about mental health, but it feels very much like mental health is almost only getting worse, right? In a lot, and it might not. I
Yeah.
don't know the statistics.
No,
Um,
I read that somewhere the other day, where despite this being, we're having the platform, and there's a lot more conversations going on about mental health, a lot more self help available, social media, etc. Does it actually seem to be having a positive impact? Is mental health or emotional health improving in people? And that's a complicated concept, right? There's many contributing factors to that, but it doesn't necessarily seem to be having like a profoundly positive impact overall. It still feels that something's missing.
Absolutely, and I mean, I read the other day as well that mental health stigma is actually getting worse. There's a study, and it was. I think the way they measure it is asking, would you live next door to someone with a mental illness, and that's one of the key questions.
If they're quiet.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It depends, right?
Yeah. If they look after their garden and they're quiet, then they
Yeah,
can live.
yeah,
If
100%.
they put my bin back for me.
Yeah, but it is on. I
But
think. I mean,
that's a profound sort of study, like how people saying that they would rather be segregated and not around people with
in
mental health problems.
there's less people saying now that they wouldn't mind, as in like they would rather.
Okay.
And it's like, I think it speaks to society, right? People are very up in arms and proactive, but when it comes to sort of like your house, it's like no, it's no, I'm not comfortable with that. But yeah,
But again, it's like, define mental health. Are you talking about not living next door to someone that's got depression,
yeah,
or someone that's got bipolar or schizophrenia or psychosis?
and that it's a very sweeping statement, isn't it? It's like
Mm.
mental health stigma is increasing, but I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of the study, but that's the takeaway. But
Yeah, it's the
is
vibe.
that a good is that a good way to measure it with that question? It doesn't feel like it's probably the best way to measure
Mm.
people's perception um, on it. And
It,
I think social media is a tricky one as well because that can be. I think it is so in. It's fantastic in a lot of ways, but it's so damaging in other ways.
mhm, yeah. And it feels like, Jack, as I'm listening to you, that ultimately you've been through a very powerful, often very challenging time at periods in your life, which led you, with the help of your mum, to reaching out for therapy, which I'm taking from our conversation that had a significantly positive impact on your life. And that seemed to spark in you this passion or this awareness and this drive to want to take on a mission for others to be able to be helped in the same way you have been.
Yeah, it was the realization really that there's going to be so many people that are just not exploring it,
Mm-hmm.
and for me, knowing how I felt in my sort of very low periods, I know that that's not uncommon, and I know that there's people that will have there'll be so many people that will have faced the same sort of situations and sort of like the way I felt. They
Mm.
just wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it at all. Um, and yeah, it slowly made me realize that there is a lot that needs to be done, and there's opportunities with it. And I mean, when I first jumped into it, like I'm very much like if I get an idea, I sort of I get excited. I get excited and go 100% with it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, already committed with the developer, done no due diligence on it and whatnot. But it was, I mean, when I first like had the idea for Wobble, it's like it's not an like essentially it is a marketplace, right? It's a marketplace,
Hmm.
a matching platform. Like it's not new. It's been done before, and there's established people in the place doing it. But there was, from what I could see at the time, none doing it in a way which spoke to me and spoke
Yeah.
to me and the people that would be like me and in a similar situation to me. And like I still, someone said, are you a mental health advocate? I was almost stumped by it because for me, I almost don't feel like I am, even though I know that what I'm doing is like trying to push it forward and I speak about it regularly and it's what my life is about essentially. But at the moment, like what's like the majority of like mental health advocacy and people speaking out and the content and the media that comes along with it, that never spoke to me and never resonated with me back then. And to be honest, a lot of it still wouldn't now. Um,
Do you know why that is?
I don't know. I think it's people will talk about it, right? People will talk about it and they'll raise awareness. But if you are someone who is not likely to speak about it with your friends or not likely to seek support in that area,
Hmm.
someone who is very pro it and is speaking about it and is very open to it, it I think it takes more than that to sort of really resonate and make a change happen. And I think like there's not a there's not a ton at the moment even now like that. This is why I am kind of obsessed with this idea at the moment of trying to reframe it in a certain way. I
Hmm.
don't know how to do it, but um, because because obviously like I just with the nature of what I'm doing, like I am sort of embedded in this mental health space where the content I see is mental health and therapy related, and still I think the majority would definitely not have spoken to me then because it I can't exactly pinpoint why, but it just wouldn't have resonated or still wouldn't resonate because I think if you're a type of person who isn't going to open up, isn't going to explore because you have these preconceived sort of perceptions of what it involves,
Hmm.
don't know how to start, and it's not for you, then it's tricky. And I think there's probably like if you were to look on TikTok or Instagram, there's probably, and I could be wrong here, but a lot more women that are pro sort of mental health awareness, speaking up about it and bringing light to it. And I have seen there's some like there are people like yourself, and there's another lad who has just launched a charity, 2 pints deep. I'm not sure it'd be actually a good one. Luke Barrow, his name is. It'd be a good
Okay.
one for you
Yeah.
to have on the show.
Yeah.
Um, but I think in terms of like if we were to look at men and what sort of content and they consume and the sort of like I was going to say role models then, but I think there's not a lot of male role models at the moment. But I don't think there's enough that speaks to people that I suppose would have been in my situation or similar to me, who would
Hmm.
be so shut off from it anyway. If it's hard to vote, it's hard to sort of put into words.
I think from what I'm hearing, it sounds like it's difficult perhaps to think about how to reach men, perhaps in particular, that are very much closed off from that form of content. Perhaps they don't think it applies to them, or that somehow it's just not landing for them. I think you're trying to articulate how actually quite nuanced that is, and how do you reach the people that aren't really exposed to it or want to be reached, or there's something in sort of the silent population of men that still aren't really feeling that there's a space for them, you know?
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
it's hard to try and define, you're right, but it just feels like you're trying to figure out and create a way to speak to more people.
yeah, yeah. 100. No, you're right. You articulate it better than I did. But it is that trying to land it and trying to create
Yeah.
that place. And I was just thinking that there are, even if you look at some sort of celebrities, there are more and more that you wouldn't expect that are um, sort of speaking about it. I mean, there's obviously Professor Green, Central C. He's
Hmm.
have spoken about it recently, but it's few and far between. And to create that space, but even then, I think thinking back to how I would have felt back then,
When
it
you were going through your
when I was going
challenges.
through it, when I was going through my shit and struggling and whatnot, it would have. It's too black and white in a way. Like it's a like the jump to therapy. Like if you're uneducated on it, and counselling is massive, right? As if even though it's not, but it feels so severe. And
Hmm.
even if you relate it back to, again, I'm not bringing it back to it, but like if you were um, wanting to get fitter, stronger, faster, whatever, you
Sounds like
wouldn't
a
just
Daft Punk song to me.
yeah, yeah. You wouldn't just like I'm going to go for a sub 3 hour marathon. And
Uh-huh.
I think to most people think, oh, I'm going to do couch to 5K, I'm going to just go to the gym, I'm going to do a bit of cycling, whatever. And I think when that sort of when this group of people, or how I was then, think about getting mental health support, it's almost not. It doesn't feel like there's any other options than this going for this full marathon, like really fast time. It almost like whereas if you wanted to get a bit fitter, you could do small steps, right? You could just start walking more in your day. I think there's a big lack of sort of like awareness on like, okay, so what can I start doing to try and maybe improve my mental health and
Hmm.
sort of like feel better? Whereas I felt at the time it was basically like I'm really suffering with something. Well, there's no options. There is that one option, therapy, but oh god, that's me. That would
Yeah.
mean I'm broken. That would mean that like I'm less of a man. It's how I felt back then anyway.
Yeah. And I think you're very beautifully describing that the jump from, like, if we're to use the fitness analogy, from couch to like Olympic athlete standard, maybe it's just too big, and it doesn't mean that everyone will struggle to adjust to that big leap, but a lot of people do, and there isn't anything sort of perhaps that's like a little bit of a step by step by step, which could lead to therapy, but may also just start on a sort of a more palatable, gentler level where you're like, okay, if I'm curious, where do I go when I'm curious but not quite sure if I want therapy or not yet?
Yeah,
You know? And it feels like you're still trying to figure out how to bring that to the space.
100%, right? And I think it's a big sort of awareness piece, and
Mm.
it's it is tricky. I mean, we've been working on something within Wobble, which is
We
a
will
bit.
get, by the way, we will get to what Wobble is because I want to
I,
deep dive into that. We haven't talked about that, but yes.
yeah, well, it's and it's a controversial subject because it involves the use of AI, right? And there was that awful case in the news recently where someone took their own life because they were using ChatGPT as a therapist, right? And
Hmm.
it's a that's a big headline, right? That's but like for me, when we first got started with Wobble, we were marketing, and we found that so many people were opening up and basically saying what they're struggling with. And this is just on a contact form, on essentially like there was ads running to it, and it was just like tell us what you're struggling with, and then we will match you with a therapist. And there were so many people that were filling out that form,
Mm.
and but then essentially it would transpire that they just the jump to speaking to a like to a person was just too much. It was they're happy to fill out this form. Could be a complete stranger on the other end and say all sort of all their sort of what they're struggling with in their personal life. But when it actually came to speaking to another human being, a qualified, experienced professional, it that was too daunting. And there's obviously the whole affordability aspect of it as well. There's a lot of people that can't afford
Hmm.
um,
Yeah.
therapy.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people that view it as expensive.
Hmm.
Um,
Well, that's incredibly interesting. It's a mindset, isn't it? That people will see that as expensive. Yet I've thought about it a lot myself. That there are other things they might pay out for in their life that they don't bat an eyelid at.
100%. Like, I
Mm.
mean, going out on the weekend,
Yeah.
like
Takeaways.
takeaways, like aesthetics,
Yeah.
all that stuff. Um, which
Hobbies.
yeah, hobbies, and that they can be very expensive, right? But the
Mm.
the thought of like paying for it, it's oh, that's too expensive. It should be free. But it it's a perception, right? It's almost, I think that misinformation as well feeds into that, and it's just people are so accustomed to spending money on these things. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of people that can't spend money on either and they can't
Of
afford.
course. Yeah.
But there is, I mean, someone said to me, someone I know, it's like I don't want to be spending sort of like £50 every week or however much. But I know, and we joked about this, that person will spend hundreds going out on the weekend every weekend.
Hmm.
And it's like, that's probably a direct contributor to why you're feeling crap as well. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so it's interesting.
It is. And I'm really interested to know more about Wobble because people listening may not have heard of it. I think it's a great opportunity for you to describe what Wobble is, the different layers to it, and yeah, really sort of paint a picture for us as to what it is that your mission has become.
Yeah, well, it's it's my life at the moment, and it 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 has to be because it's I mean, I went into it very naively thinking, oh, I've got this idea. I'm going to set up a website. Um, it's been an interesting journey, and I had no idea that I was essentially going into building a tech product. I thought I was just launching something, and the headaches that.
Hmm.
Yeah, but I mean, I love it. Right, it keeps me so like I'm so passionate about this mission of destigmatizing mental health support, and opening people's eyes really to exploring it. And Wobble is a place where that can be done. And from the very start, I all like the mission has to be destigmatize,
Mm.
raise awareness. And I can, I hold my hands up. I should have been doing more of that, in terms of just speaking about it, but just the very nature of trying to get Wobble off the ground, run it, has sort of held me back in certain areas. But
How would you describe the current position of Wobble? What is it? What does it offer?
so it's a place where you can go, answer 4 or 5 questions, and then be matched with a number of therapists or counsellors that you can then go on and book a free intro call with, and then if you click, then
Hmm.
carry on with normal sessions. It's
Hmm.
it's different to BetterHelp in the sense that we're not a subscription platform.
Ah, okay.
So it is you go on there. It's pay as you go almost. I mean, all of our practitioners, and I think we've got like 75 at the moment. But
Wow,
we're
that's amazing.
that's the one thing we've never struggled with is attracting practitioners, which has been
Hmm.
fantastic. And I think that comes down to the mission, right, of destigmatizing it, and like that. I tried to build an audience of people who were interested in therapy and exploring it, but I ended up building like an audience of just practitioners and professionals,
Well,
and
I include myself in that. That's how I connected with you.
yeah, it's and so that's great. We've got some great people on there.
So
Um,
it's a directory where you an individual go to the website, answer a few brief questions, and then get to be matched with an accredited, yeah, professional practitioner in the therapy space, and then they can decide where to go from there,
100%.
whether or
Yeah,
not they carry on. And that's a, that is it's like an online directory of sorts, but it sounds like it's different from the other offerings in the space.
yeah, absolutely. So like when I first went through my journey with it, I went to the traditional sort of like directories, and it was that for me they feel so clinical. So clinical, it's
Hmm.
almost off-putting because I didn't know where to look or what to look for. So in its in its in its simplest form, it's a directory, it's a marketplace,
Hmm.
where we have a lot of great therapists on there, and then we can. What a big thing for me was trying to make sure that when you've made that decision to look for mental health support, you're not put off by the language, you're not put off by what do I look for, do I need a certain type
Yeah,
of it, and it kind of
yeah.
I really wanted to simplify that journey, and there's a big focus moving forward for us of making
Yeah.
it as frictionless as possible to connect
Hmm.
with someone who can potentially help you.
Makes
Um,
sense.
and I didn't want to offer I didn't want to put subscriptions in place as of yet because I don't want to tie people in, and I think that it's such a big commitment. If you are making that step to look to better yourself and look for mental health support, I don't think it at the moment you should be tied into X amount per month and whatnot. And I won't go into BetterHelp because that's the whole another conversation, and whatnot. But um, I did want to be the opposite of BetterHelp,
Hmm.
in some regards, and I wanted to make sure that anyone we have on the platform that they're checked, they have a certain level of experience, qualifications, and so that because the the worst thing for me would be someone going through Wobble to get mental health support and then essentially having a bad experience, and the chances are it's a big decision for most. if you have a single bad experience, for most people that is going to put them off for the foreseeable, right? It's going to be therapy doesn't work for me. Like it's
Hmm.
a bad experience. Um, so that's a big focus. And
So you want to make it less likely that they're going to have a bad experience, make the process much more relatable, much less clinical, much more normalized. Like, I don't even know if that's the right word, but it just feels nicer,
yeah,
maybe is the right word. Like,
yeah, removing
not
that,
quite as, yeah, that friction, as you say.
yeah, and just open it up to more people.
Hmm.
And we're working on a sort of a low barrier support tool as well called Winnie. Um, that's still very much being developed, and I've got some plans for that in the future. Um, but I need to bring people in that are much more intelligent than me to make that work. Um,
Well, you need a team of people that have got that in their wheelhouse, I guess.
100%.
Yeah.
There's a where I am at the moment. There's opportunities to partner with local universities on certain tech
Hmm.
like development projects, and that might
Yeah.
be an option.
Yeah.
But yeah, Wobble in its simplest form is essentially a directory of marketplace, but we want to make it as frictionless as possible. Because
Mm.
relating it back to my experience, I felt like I had to jump through hoops when someone who didn't know anything about therapy or counseling or mental health support, it when I made that decision to try it, it was not frictionless. And there would have been
Hmm.
plenty of points where I could have been like, I've tried. It's not like I'm going to give up at this point, sort of thing.
Hmm. Yeah, and I really love what you say on your website. I have written a few things down just as quotes. One thing you say on the About Us page is the singular mission is to redefine how we perceive and approach mental health, which I love, and also breaking down barriers that keep people from seeking therapy. And
Yeah,
so that's very beautifully describes, for me at least, what we've been talking about today.
yeah. I mean, and if we can achieve sort of 10-15% of what we want to, then
Mm.
it's a step in the right direction, right? And more people will be helped.
And it also, the bit that stood out for me as well is that you describe Wobble as a place where people can also build, well, it is building a community rather than just a directory where you get matched with a therapist and then you don't go back. It feels like there's more coming there in terms of connections.
100%. And it's again, I'm slightly time poor at the moment, but I would like to do more in that space, and we plan to. Um, but I feel like I need I need to get a bit more advanced in how I can plan to sort of reframe
Mm.
what I want to reframe, because I think the moment that I have complete clarity in that, there is going to be a ton that we can do in terms of activation, community, people getting together, partnerships. I mean, we've got a number of partnerships that are going through at the moment, but that community is something that I want to do much more of. Uh, and but it's at the moment I feel like I just haven't found that sort of like key as to how I can reach the right people and change perspective. But that is part of the plan for sure.
Hmm. And I feel that these sort of projects, passion projects, labors of love, that they take time to evolve, don't they? They take time to grow, and they might start off in one place and then end up in a slightly different place. But what's really powerful is that at the heart of all of this, you really want to make a difference.
Yeah, 100%. And it's. I mean, when I first started, I was almost felt slightly uncomfortable with it because it was like, and I had a couple of people accuse me, and they were like, you're just trying to take advantage of people with poor mental health and like profit from it financially. But for me to attach myself and what I do day in day out to something which at the end of the day will significantly impact someone's life,
Hmm.
um, makes it very worthwhile for me. And if we can achieve just a smidge of that, then we're making some form of a difference.
Yeah. And look, there's space, right? In my experience, the emotional health space, mental health space, it's forever growing, expanding, and we need people like you that have visions and want to make a difference and create systemic change, because it doesn't mean that the space has to be sort of dominated by just one or two, brand names, if that's the right word. There's room for everyone.
Yeah,
And that at the heart of what you're doing, I really think people will fall in love with the story, and that will count because already you're matching clients to therapists. But yeah, it's the heart of the business that is going to what is start that again. It's the heart of the business which is going to make it relatable, and that to
yeah,
me is where there's space for everyone's story, and we don't have to diminish our own passion because we think, oh, other people are already doing something over there.
yeah,
We'll let them get on with that over there, and you get on with that over there. you
yeah.
know,
There's a lot of people in the world, right?
I
There's,
always think of it like people don't stop writing books because people have written books,
yeah,
or
yeah.
people
No,
don't stop making music because other people have made music.
100%, 100%. It's yeah, and I'm probably guilty of not talking about my story enough, and it's I've had a lot of people that have said like this can be a key differentiator for Wobble is your story behind it. But
Mhm.
I'm wondering who cares? Like who cares? Who
A
cares
lot
about
of
my
people,
story?
yeah, because for me it feels like that's what's going to help people understand the business, the mission, and it's going to be what people fall in love with. And I have to ask, because I'm so curious, where did the name Wobble come from?
You could probably guess who gave
Well,
you the name.
I have, but I want to hear it from you. Like, am I right in what
So
I'm thinking?
yeah, if you're thinking it was my mum who gave me the name, then then you're right.
Well,
And
my mind goes to, oh, I'm having a wobble.
100%. And she coined that, right? So that was her brainchild. I was going to call it Noodle, right? And then everyone was like, why would you have called it Noodle? And I like, but I'm glad I went with Wobble. And then Winnie, the reason I've called Winnie is I purely wanted to keep it a W, and I had a pug called Winnie when I was younger.
Oh,
So I'm not too good with names, but luckily I've got people close to me that are.
okay. And Winnie, just remind me.
Yeah, so Winnie's something we're developing at the moment, but it's really to support those people who aren't ready to make the leap to speaking to
Ah,
another
that's right.
person
So
yet,
it's like
or
a step in between.
it's a step in between, and
Hmm.
it will as you speak to it, it will sort of like if it picks up that you are open to exploring therapy, it will push you back to Wobble. But I there's more I need to do with it in the sense of I
That's right.
want to make a bit more of a almost like a mental health concierge where they're combined and they feed into each other and it's one thing. But
Hmm.
yeah, Winnie's still in development, but it's to sort of catch and help those people who aren't ready to make that leap or who cannot afford speaking to a professional at the moment in time.
From your personal experience now, is there anything that you would say to men listening to this that maybe resonate with all or part of your story? What have you learned that you sort of summarize and potentially offer them as wisdom?
I think just if you're struggling with something where it's getting to a point where you are thinking about it most of the day or multiple nights a week, then you are doing yourself a disservice by not just trying to speak to someone because
Hmm.
the energy involved with reaching out to someone, having a conversation, whether that look, even if it's a friend, right? Like speak to someone. But for me, the amount of energy and sort of like how shit I felt for an extended period of time, and I thought that was just That would be me, essentially. That literally, I had such a shift within my first session because I previously didn't have an element of hope, and then I suddenly had this element of hope that things can get better. Like, you've got to be committed to work on it, right? It's not a case of you turn up and everything's better. Like, it would be fantastic, but like, that hope was so impactful for me, and I know that can be impactful for others. But you just have to just take that leap. Like, you're not going to regret it in that sense, really, are you? It's just trying one thing. But if
Mm-hmm.
to answer your question, if there is something that is consistently on your mind and you are like, you don't know how to deal with it, then it's not going to change. Like, there's a reason that people are there who have studied and become very qualified and experienced to help you with this, and that I just didn't realize that it could be applied to so many different situations.
Mm-hmm.
And so I suppose to simplify the message is, if you're having a consistent issue, or you're having a consistent thing that is plaguing your thoughts, then stop letting that drain you and waste your energy, and just make the leap. Speak to someone. I
I
would say
like that. Yeah, it's yeah, and that really does shine through how positive it's been. You know, that maybe doesn't even cover it. It feels like it helped you at the time that you needed it, and was the catalyst for a huge amount of change for you. You know, there's a bit of a sort of, in that message, I think it goes back to what we were speaking about before around, don't wait until it gets to crisis. Therapy can be there for you to start working on things the moment you start noticing, oh, this feels off, I don't understand it, I'm not sure, this doesn't feel right, I don't feel like I can figure this out on my own. Then that's an opportunity to go, well, maybe it's okay for me to ask for help there.
100%. Like, you only know what you know, and just
Mm,
by ruminating and letting it go round and round and round, you're not going to change that.
mm,
And yeah, it was of great value to me, and it really, like, it changed my life. It helped me massively, but it also gave me so much more awareness in sort of like my day-to-day life that applied to sort of almost everything. And it almost, I feel like, has given me a set of skills that have helped me tremendously I for the reason I went to therapy and had therapy. It's like the stuff that I have learned within that about myself and how to process and deal and move forward, and relationships and all sorts, is has changed my life for the better, not just for that issue, but for everything moving forward. And I think I would be a completely different person
mm.
now if it wasn't for my experience with therapy and Nina.
Well, it's wonderful that Nina was there at the time you needed her, that
100%.
you managed to overcome the barriers to getting to meet her.
Yeah, it was it's my mum. Got
Well,
to
shout out to mum. What's her name?
Ginny, yeah, shout out to Ginny. So
Definitely shout out to Jilly for persevering with you.
100%.
And yeah, sort of picking up on something else you've said there briefly, speaking as a therapist as well, we do go through a lot of training. We do work hard. We do look at ourselves a lot to enable us to help others do the same, if that makes sense. But we are human, and I like to think of myself as like, I'm a human being first, and that means that people that are coming to see me, first and foremost, it's a conversation between two human beings. One, yes, has training and experience, but in my mind and in my world, therapy now isn't about hiding behind some kind of professional facade. It's more, hey, this is me. And a lot of therapists, and I can't speak for everyone, but a lot of them go into the profession because they have suffered.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can remember that when you're looking for someone, what attracted them to therapy, it's highly likely because they've been through stuff. And I think that's really important to add in, because we're not trying to separate ourselves from everyone else. We want to create connection with our clients. We want to genuinely build that rapport and that trust. And it's because we've gone through stuff ourselves and we know what it's like. So yeah, just putting that in there really is a therapists are people.
100%. And so to your point about sort of, there's a lot of people that have got into this profession because they have dealt with stuff themselves and then made that decision. And I was speaking to one just the other day, but I know someone quite close to me, and they had gone through a very sort of like troubling time and a big changes in their life, and they spoke to a therapist. Didn't even realize when they sort of sent the initial contact to that therapist, but that therapist had been in an almost identical situation to this person, and that made the world a difference, because instantly it's so relatable as a client, I think, as well.
Mm-hmm.
And what you were saying about conversation first, that's what shocked me about therapy. I went in and I was thinking it's gonna be a dark room, it's gonna be uncomfortable, but it was conversation first, and it was the thing that all stood out to me was it was a space in which you almost have an hour to like dedicated to this space where you can speak to someone who is professional, who is qualified, but there's no other agenda other than sort of helping you. And I think people can say, well, you can speak to your friends or your family. It's not the same at all. One, because of the years of training and expertise, but two, it's everyone has their own agenda, right? And it's very easy to sort of like worm that way into a conversation. You're going to give an opinion and whatnot. And that's what really stood out to me. And that's what made me look forward to it, because it was this dedicated block of time where I would sit down and there was no other agenda than someone helping me get through life, really. So,
yeah. And do you know what? That's really powerful, isn't it?
it felt like
dedicated, safe place where all judgment and opinion, I would say not completely suspended, but it's the focus is always the client in good therapy.
yeah,
And yeah, that's somewhat hard to replicate outside of the therapy space. Not impossible, but it can serve as a huge role modeling of what it is like to be in a healthy relationship with someone, albeit it's a therapeutic relationship. My profound belief is that good therapists are role modeling how to have healthy human relationships.
yeah,
Which is big.
yeah.
It's big.
And it's so important, right? Because it's not as simple as like, if we all knew how to do that, then the world would be a very different place. But and that's so important for life, isn't it? It's built on relationships. It's built on people and connection. So that's powerful.
I will put all the links and relevant details in the show notes, but just for in the moment kind of plugging, if you like share with me the how people get in touch with Wobble and where's the best place to find out information.
Yeah, perfect. I mean, so you visit Wobble just by going on getwobble.co.uk.
Okay.
You can submit a contact form on there, or I'm happy for anyone to reach out to me on email.
Yeah, and I'll put it in the show notes as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
perfect. It's jack@getwobble.co.uk. And I have put together a sort of a discount code for your listeners if that is something that you wanted to provide to them. So I'm happy to share that. But I mean, if anyone wants to reach out, they can contact me on all the sort of the main socials, and it's at Jack B Murphy _ as well. So
I'll include all of that in the show notes so people know exactly how to get in touch with you. But it's been a genuine privilege to learn about you today, Jack. I think your story is so empowering, and the fact that it's led to you going on this mission took you by surprise by the sounds of things. But I just want to say, I think it's a wonderful mission, and I wish you all the best with it. And I hope that Wobble and Winnie just continue to grow in strength to strength. And this is, I think, a really important way of reaching people that might otherwise not be reached.
Oh, thank you. I'm really grateful for you having me on the show. I know
Mm.
it's been tough to pin down. We tried to do this about a year ago, but
Well, hey, it happened in its own time, right?
yeah, yeah. But I
Yeah.
really appreciate the space to talk about it, mate, and thank you for having me on. I really do appreciate it.